I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast and YouTube channel. Today I have Mr. Joe with me, and we are going to talk about something that whether you're just getting started or you've been in business for a while, this is something you want to go back and think about. So we are going to talk about your value proposition and then your customer value model. Essentially, who are you speaking to? And all of the things that come with that. And the reason that even if you've been doing this for a while, you should definitely keep listening is because sometimes our marketing may speak to who we thought we were talking to in the beginning. But now that we have actually started working with clients, is that who you still want to be talking to? And it never hurts to go back and do an audit of everything you have online, look at it, make sure it's talking to your ideal customer. So thank you, Mr. Joe, for being on the show.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Will you tell everyone just a little bit about you and then we can jump into the topic?
Sure. So a quick view of my background. I was a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers back a while ago. For about 10 years, I worked for them in consulting. I left there. I was in Cincinnati, left there, moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was spent 17 years in Fort Wayne, owning and running small businesses. One that your listeners may know of is Vera Bradley handbag. I ran a company that made the Vera Bradley handbag for about, 5 or 10 years. Left, sold out, and started an angel investing fund. And so ran an angel fund for a number of years, moved out to Phoenix in 2010 and joined the company I'm currently with, Business Enterprise Mapping, which is a process management, mapping, and improvement firm. So we work with organizations to sort of untangle workflow and design a better way to get the results they desire.
Awesome. I love it. Hello, Vera Bradley, that's awesome. That's a good one that, yes, all of us definitely know. And before we were hopping on, when I was telling you about my listeners and, what would help them, I really love that you brought this topic up because I've talked about it in the past, but it never hurts to go back and talk about it. And so let's start with like the value proposition. What kind of
Sure.
advice would you give on that one?
Yeah. So the value proposition applies at all stages and all levels and all sizes of the business, right? There are 4 components to a good value proposition. Number 1 is, who is our target customer? What are the characteristics, geographic, demographic, desires, interests? The more specificity you can attach to your desired customer, the better you can then design a value proposition that fulfills their needs, right? The second component is their painful problem. What problem does that customer experience that we desire to solve for them? The more painful the problem, or the more intense the desire for our solution, the more valuable we become to them, right? The third component is our solution, right? What do we provide that solves that painful problem? And the more painful the problem and the better our solution, the more valuable we become. And obviously, the more profitable we can be in serving that target market. You don't have to be perfect in the solution you provide, although there's nothing wrong with being perfect. You just have to be better than the options that they have available to them. And so in that solution set, you need to understand what options are available to solve that painful problem and where you fit in that solution grouping, if you will, relative to other choices they could make. And then the fourth dimension is the net benefit that they derive in acquiring your solution. So simplistically, it's the value received relative to the cost delivered, right? And so do I receive enough value to justify the expense of doing business with you? And that is entirely judged in the eye of the beholder. What we think the customer derives in that value is worthless. What really matters is what that customer thinks they derive in that value. Our goal ultimately is to provide more value than cost relative to the other options they have to solve their painful problem. That's the value proposition.
Love it. That was beautiful. And I took notes. So, all right, go back. We'll go back to the beginning and go through each one a little bit deeper. So the who, right?
Mhm.
One thing that helped me when I was first starting my business is I actually gave my ideal client like a name, and she had kids
Right.
and like who
Mhm.
she, like the whole everything to her. And a lot of my coaching mentees that, I
Mhm.
coach and stuff, a lot of times I'll hear, but I could help anyone, or, I
Mhm.
could
Right.
go and, if I'm only talking to one person, these other people, like they could, you almost feel like you're taking people and not inviting everyone to the
Right.
table. But like I tell them all the time, when you talk to one, everyone can feel like you're talking to them because they can
Right.
have a piece of that person,
Yeah.
that ideal client. But when you're talking to too many people, no one is going to feel like you're talking to them.
Right. So the more customers you try to serve, the less special your solution becomes, right?
Ooh. Mhm.
Because you need to generalize the larger the customer target base, the more generalized your solution needs to be in order to fit those various constituency needs, right? And so the value proposition has to be based on the idea that I offer a solution that is uniquely valuable to a target customer population, right? And there's going to be plenty there to serve. And the beautiful thing in that thinking is the more we serve, the better we get at serving them. And the more we learn about what their needs are and how we can better hone our solution to meet those needs.
1,000%. It essentially waters it down, right? It
That's
waters your
right.
solution down, it waters everything down, the more people you're talking to. And I love that you said that because I actually had a client, I think yesterday or day before I was working with, and she was talking about, like the economy and how things are inflation, all these things, right?
Right.
But she had made a comment about, she said, "Well, at least you don't have to worry." She said, "You are so like niched in on who you
Mhm.
help that
Right.
you don't have to worry about and I was like, "Oh, you're right, I am," because I
Nice,
focus more
right?
on the decluttering, yes, and it was
Yeah.
a very
Right.
good feeling of like, yes, I don't have to worry because I have found that kind of niche that wasn't available in my area
Mhm.
when I first created it in multiple different ways that I do it.
Right.
But absolutely. Okay, so painful problem. Whenever we go into that, it's well, I'll let you explain a little more and then
Yeah.
we'll go from
So
there.
let me couple the painful problem with the customer value model together because that's the problem and the solution. So the customer value model is the way we articulate our solution to the painful problem. Okay. So there are four dimensions to the customer value model: the deliverable itself, the good or service that we're providing to solve that problem; the responsiveness in our relationship of providing that product or service; the economics of our relationship, the cost of doing business that our customer has with us; and then finally, the service or support that we provide around that relationship. So those four components define the solution that we're providing to solve that customer's painful problem, right? So when you look at each of those, the deliverable itself, the actual product or service we're providing, the question is, what's the quality and efficacy of that solution, right? To what extent do we solve our customers' problems? So that begins with understanding what is the target we're attempting to solve in that product or service. Exactly what is their problem, and to what extent does our solution solve that problem, right? So that's number one. So do we have the right target? Do we know exactly what we're trying to provide that customer, and do we consistently provide it, right? So the two dimensions of quality in a product or service. The second component is the responsiveness, right? And responsiveness can take a number of dimensions, but typically it is either faster is better or on time to the customer's need. I need it every Monday at 9 a.m. or I need it now, right? And
Mhm.
so there's a responsiveness component, and you can lose business even though you have a great deliverable because of lack of responsiveness, right? And then the third dimension, the cost of ownership, is not only what my customer or client pays for my product or service, but what does our relationship cost them? Do they have maintenance fees? Do they have payment options? There are lots of economics to that relationship beyond just a dollar for a product or something like that. And then the support, right? Sometimes support can overwhelm everything else. I'm willing to pay more for your service because your support is so awesome. Your wisdom, your ability to contribute to my strategy, your knowledge of my business that makes me better at my business, right? The intangibles around that relationship can sometimes render the actual product or service not as important. I can get that same product or service from 10 different places, but I can't get that wisdom and support from them that I can get from you, right? So it begins with a thorough understanding of the painful problem my customer is trying to solve, and then that customer value of the solution set of how I'm going to go about solving that problem for them. It makes me an invaluable business partner in their journey, right? Am I a shaman do they rely on for great wisdom and strength, or am I a commodity that they can get anywhere at any time?
Yeah, one of the things I heard someone say recently was, as a coach, you're more of a guide. And I
Hmm.
like that phrase because I like being a guide. I'm not here to tell you do it exactly this way. I want to guide you to success. I want to guide you in the ways of what I've learned, but you don't have to do it exactly like I do it, but you
Right.
can like glean that wisdom from me. And it's exactly that way at being organizers, right? Like I
Hmm.
had a one of my members this week in the coaching group. She almost felt guilty taking the check for that day's session because they spent 80% of the session just talking.
Hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, but you have no idea how powerful that was for her."
Right.
Because a lot of our clients, they feel, they're overwhelmed. They, haven't, they don't feel seen and heard by maybe their spouses, or maybe they're,
Right.
caregiving for their parents or whatever it is. And sometimes having that conversation and that like wow factor and going above and beyond just a little bit for them in the fact that we care is
Mhm.
exactly what you're talking about. And
Right.
I think when you're first starting as an organizer, you can get in that mentality of, "Oh, but it's the action. I have to do the most perfect pantry, or I have to do the most
Right.
perfect whatever." And yes, it's nice that you do a good job, but there's also this emotional aspect for our clients that is
Right.
exactly what you're talking about. It's for them, it's invaluable compared to they could hire anyone to come in and do the organizing. But when you
Yeah.
come in and you connect with them and you help them feel supported, or you take a moment to be like, "Hey, I see that you're kinda off today. Are you okay?"
Mhm.
Those little things truly do add up to great customer service and clients continuing to come back over and over again.
They do. And I think one of the things you need to come to peace with as a consultant or advisor is that you can offer the greatest wisdom, but it's up to the client to decide if they want to take it or not, right? They're not accountable to you or me for what we say they should do, right? Their results are their responsibility. Our role is to give them our best advice and our best wisdom. And sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't, but you got to be okay either way.
Yeah, yep, absolutely, 1,000%. Yes, that's so good, and I think too, back to, like, the painful problem and the solution as well, is the more that we can dive deeper into the who, like we were talking about a
Right.
minute ago, the more we're gonna know exactly the wording for the painful
Mhm.
problem, exactly what they need for the
Right.
solution. And I think sometimes the other thing as service providers that we sometimes get off track a little bit is we can be like, "But if I just add more services, if I
Right.
just added a this option and a that option. But what I found is the simpler I keep it, the easier the yes is for the client because a confused mind does not buy.
Right. Right. It's the old adage, if I have 100 options, I can't choose. If I have two or three, I can choose. Right.
Yes.
And by honing in on a particular target customer base, a particular deep understanding of their painful problem, we can craft a better, deeper, more focused solution. And we have confidence as a business owner in our ability to understand who fits, who doesn't. And we're not sort of enticed to go beyond our core capability to do stuff that we won't do as well because we're not as well versed in it and don't have that solution as well honed, right? There's plenty of business in your core solution, right? In
A
that core target
1,000%.
customer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty, no
Plenty.
matter where you live, no matter what, like, and that's the other piece of this is that I think a lot of us can kind of feel like, oh, because there's organizers kind of popping up everywhere right now because
Right.
it's a
Mm,
growing industry.
right.
But what I like to remind my girls is that, you know, half of them probably still aren't in business because a lot of people
Mm,
start it and then stop it and they don't even make it through the first year. The other part is that their target market is different. So just because they're there, it's actually a good thing because it means there's more people out there looking for that
right.
solution in your area.
Right.
So I mean, I love looking at it as, community over competition. I like to glean the information, but I'm not going to go to the point where it starts making me doubt myself or
Exactly. Now, let me go one more step. Now that you have a good customer value model built around what satisfies your customer's painful problem, you can now standardize the work behind that and that solution set. In my business, we do the same things the same way with every client, right? And what that does is that allows us to be extremely effective and efficient in serving our clients' needs. By doing the same things the same way, you get more and more and more efficient at doing those over time, simplify your life, make it easier to deliver your service. And along the way, you're improving the effectiveness for your clients because you're learning more the bells and whistles that give you that extra special edge in serving them relative to other options they might have.
yeah, 1,000%. I tell my ladies too all the time. I'm like, you're a problem solver, right? So
Right.
like when you go in, these clients, like something yesterday as simple as me as I was leaving, I said, hey, let me run by UPS and return a few Amazon returns
Hmm.
for you because I knew my client was going to leave them sitting
Yeah,
there. And then, and for her,
exactly.
that got her $100 back. And for her, that's a huge, like, oh, wow. Anything small like that, that we see our clients have a need for and have a problem
Right.
with, that we can offer the solution and be the problem solver for them is what's going to make our businesses succeed
And
and
that can
have
be
them.
part of your service checklist, right? As one of the support areas that I'll offer, right? Just as, and
Yeah,
that can be
absolutely.
standardized in your client customer value model.
Yeah. And then on the net benefit, this
Hmm.
one I've never like, I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never heard it in this way. So will you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So effectiveness is the value delivered to your customer, right? The more value you deliver, the more effective you are, the more delighted they are with you as a supplier that meets their needs, right? So there is always a cost whenever you're serving an external customer or client with either a product or service, there's a cost associated with that. So that client has a value judgment to make. Is the value that I received from our relationship as defined by the customer value model, the product or service, the responsiveness, the cost, the support, does that exceed what I pay them in our relationship relative to all other options that I may have? Right. And so the net benefit is I feel like the value is worth the money in our relationship. Therefore, I want to continue using them. Therefore, I would recommend them to other potential clients they may seek. Therefore, I'm happy, I'm satisfied in the relationship that we have with one another. they meet my needs. They solve my painful problem in a way that I'm happy with, right? That's the net
Love it.
benefit.
Gotcha. And for me, it's what I've always called like the wow factor and
Hmm.
it's all of those little things that we create for our clients that exactly what you said that make them our marketing machine. Like it is so
Right.
worth especially what we do because it's so personal. We're inside of your underwear drawer, we're inside of your
Right.
closet, we're in the drawers that nobody else sees and you're showing us all the stuff that you hide when family comes over, you know? So
Exactly.
having that personal relationship and being able to help them feel that value and feel and be comfortable with you, it's huge in
Very
what we do
much.
as organizers.
Right.
I love it. So I know that well, first off, is there anything on either one of these topics that we haven't touched on or that you would like to say before we move on?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. So I did want to at least mention your books. I know you've written a few. You want to tell us a little bit about your books you've written?
Yeah, so thanks. So they sort of go back to the three stages of my career. So when I was at PwC, I wrote a book called Time Based Manufacturing. I worked in large consumer product companies. I was an early adopter and learner of just in time and it's very hardcore supply chain stuff. When I moved to Fort Wayne and we started an angel fund, I wrote a book, Attracting an Angel: How Entrepreneurs Get Money and Why Most Don't, because I kept being asked the same questions by folks looking for investment. And so a partner and I just wrote a book to kind of simplify the decision making on if you want outside money, here are the things you need to be able to do to get it. And then with business enterprise mapping during COVID, we wrote a book called Red Cloud Road: How Strategic Process Management Drives Competitive Advantage. And so our business today is really built around the idea of standardizing our work in a way that makes us both more effective and efficient.
Love it. Yeah, and then not only that, but with what you all do, like you literally help other businesses create their systems, and it's
We
exactly
do.
what you said of
Yeah.
like streamlining those systems too,
Right.
which is,
We do.
what I feel like I do with my girls of like, listen, don't like it took me forever to build this thing out. Now I can help you streamline it and get there faster and get there working with
Right.
clients. But what I do love too is as we start to hire assistants, as we start to hire virtual assistants, whatever that looks like for us as we grow our business, the more processes that we know of exactly how they work and the way we can then convey them to our assistants or bring in additional
Yeah.
support so everything's not on us for the entire rest of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, business processes sort of are the engine that drives a business model for any business. And if you desire to grow a business, you need understood and documented business processes so that you can repeat your work in a way that allows you to get bigger without wasting a lot of time and money.
1,000%. It's so good. And will you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, so our website is www.businessmapping.com, and I'm available on LinkedIn, Joe Bockerstette. Anybody would like to connect, just reach out. Love to chat.
I love it. Thank you, Joe. This has been such a good and
You're
valuable
welcome.
conversation, and I
Yeah.
appreciate your time. And for those of you listening, we appreciate you, and we will see you in the next episode.
Take care, Samantha. Thank you.